All right, good evening, everybody. Let's go ahead and call the December 4th meeting of the Sustainability Advisory Commission to order. Will staff please call the roll?
Stacy Gloss,
Present.
Dustin Allred,
Present.
Claire Johnson,
Present.
Todd Rusk, Andrew Stone,
Present.
Morgan White,
Here.
Tess Day Maydean,
Present.
Scott Tess,
Here.
Maddie Garbaz.
Here.
We're all here.
Great, thank you very much. We have a quorum. In your packets this week, you received the minutes to the past two meetings from both November and October. Let's go ahead, we'll just do one by one. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the October meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
Were there any changes or corrections to the minutes? All in favor of approving the October minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and then moving on to the November minutes, is there a motion to approve the November minutes from the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any changes or corrections? Okay, everyone in favor of approving the minutes of the November meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That also passes. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda this evening? Okay. We'll move into the public input portion of our meeting. Are there any members of the audience that would like to address the commission tonight? Okay. Scott, will you please provide the staff report?
Sure. Good evening. First, some updates with the Climate Action Plan. I had discussed last month that Ameren had contacted the city about trying to get some end-of-year funds in their energy efficiency programming spent. We were not able to inventory streetlights in time for them to mobilize a crew and sign agreements and so forth and get a LED streetlight project done at the end of this calendar year. So we weren't able to capitalize on that opportunity, but we'll continue to monitor next program year's incentives. This was a particular offering because they were willing to spend a lot of money because they needed to get it spent, but it won't be the same starting the next calendar year. It'll just be their normal incentive levels. But we'll continue to look for opportunities. So part of the challenge is we have GPS points, GIS points for every street light, but there's no data associated with that. So you have to know what light is in there to start with before you can apply for the incentives and get a replacement. And we have we've been down, at least compared to historic levels, we've been down one electrician in Public Works for a number of years. And when it comes to replacing lights for safety and counting light bulbs and for an inventory, replacing lights for safety and other electrical tasks come first. And so it's really hard to staff time to get that inventory built. So that's where we're at, but we'll continue to look for opportunities there. Mm-hmm.
Just one. So let's see. This is the first year that Ameren has done a public sector, but I remember. This could be not that you can count on end of year funds being available, but this isn't the first time it's happened in these kinds of programs, and so as staffing resources are available, if there's any particular priorities, especially street lighting or other kinds of like easy standard incentive things, if there's like a shovel-ready list of stuff, so like when they call on November 15th, like, hey, what do you got?
Right.
Anyway, it's just a thought, to be ready for that kind of thing.
What you say makes perfect sense. When the money is not on the table, it's hard to move it up that project and move up the priority list. But what you're saying makes perfect sense.
I have one question just also. I wasn't sure how much does the process for inventorying the LED lights rely on either an electrical engineer or an electrician? Is that something that a class or a university group of student engineers could help with to conduct this inventory?
It's actually a good question for Todd. I'm kicking over to you.
Depending on the lighting, if it is out on the street, on a pole, I would be reluctant for safety reasons, but also for like data quality reasons. If it is something like, inside a building, in a space, that would be a different thing. But out in the street, there's the questions of, anyway, what voltage is it? How can you identify? It could be a lot of things, and it's behind the lens and all that kind of stuff. Anyway. No. That would be great.
Can't just reach up and unscrew the bulb.
I know, that would be
Yeah.
great. Well, you'd have a different story about Ameren if that was the case.
Okay. We had discussed, actually, I think it was a question from Todd, the rate change that Ameren had published, and it was a little bit difficult to discern what was going on with their press release. So I talked and mostly emailed with Citizens Utility Board about it, and they agreed, I think, what we had discussed, which is, there were some behind-the-scenes assumptions about usage and what prices will be like that led Ameren to make that statement that some folks are going to have bill reduction. Well, some folks are going to see portions of their bill go down as well as portions go up, and on balance it'll be a net savings. Obviously, folks who are on municipal electric aggregation supply or other supplies are not going to see the savings in that portion of the bill. How it all shakes out is still pretty difficult to determine because we don't know, the assumptions behind it, and that's kind of where the Citizens Utility Board left it as well. So yeah, it depends on a case-by-case basis.
So I wonder if in the past month, have there been any questions that came, that have come into the city about that, or anybody, any interesting upticks in, opt-outs? Anyway, I wonder if there's any, have you seen anything like that, or is there something that we could look for? And I mean, if it didn't happen in this immediately after, nothing's going to happen, but I'm just curious if you saw anything.
The opt-outs are always very, very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
There is fluctuation in enrollment. I can't, just looking at it, I don't see any patterns to it. It doesn't seem to track with...
No spike or anything?
No, it doesn't seem to track with, and it goes up and down. It doesn't seem to track with Ameren's price to compare. The other thing to consider is there are two different things going on. One is opt-outs, so someone's there and they choose to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
The other is households coming online or offline in terms of being occupied. So we're going to get more enrollment when we add housing that's occupied. And then, if there's a decline in, occupied housing, a lot of vacant housing for some quarter or year, then we see declines in enrollment, even though opt-outs may not have changed. So both of those are going on. There is some suggestion among folks that the door-to-door retail electric supply tends to come in waves. A vendor gets a subcontract to go knock on doors for a month or 3 months or whatever it might be. And so that's going to cause, some very small spike in opt-outs as people are switching to another supplier. So that may cause these otherwise unexplainable declines. And
But the press release that gets published on page B7 or whatever is not.
is that where it ended up?
Something like that.
Yeah, I'll mention it. I don't know if I've talked about it here. Maybe I have. I do get occasional calls about misleading door-to-door sales practices that are so misleading that it's not a stretch at all to say that they're lying to folks at the door. And the city has guidance on how to handle door-to-door electricity supply sales on our website. We have published a press release. It appeared, the information appeared in the mayor's email this week. It's what has been represented to me in phone calls from residents is so egregious that I have no choice but to tell people simply not to talk to door-to-door retail electric supply salespersons. The practices, probably not all retail electric suppliers, but the practices of some are so egregious that that's where we're at in terms of what we advise folks. So you might have seen that in the mayor's email. Moving on. I have a note here that Solar Urbana-Champaign 3.0, which should be, we sometimes extend the final contract signing date because it seems like, there's someone who says, I just need a week to get a loan or something like that. But we should be closed as of the end of November for new contracts. At the time of writing, we had somewhere around 500 kilowatts installed. Since then, we've had a few more contracts signed, including a single contract for 240 kilowatts of capacity. So it looks like we may...
That's excellent.
Yeah. It looks like we may exceed our best year. This may be our best year yet. So pretty phenomenal. Happy with that. The city has come to terms on a lease option and lease for a landfill solar development with the developer SunPower. We're putting those documents together to go to Committee of the Whole on Monday. And Committee of the Whole will consider that, and if they vote in favor, to advance it to City Council. It'll get a final vote there. The resolution will authorize the mayor to sign the lease option that gives SunPower 24 months to put together a project. They have the exclusive use of the site to put together a project. Incentive lottery with the state will open up in January, and so they'll be applying for 2 different 2-megawatt solar arrays in that incentive lottery. If we win an incentive, then we will convert some or all of the acreage in the lease option to a long-term lease, probably 25 years, and then we'll build a project and sell the power to a small number of off-takers through the grid.
Just approximately, how much of the closed landfill is in that lease option? Is it half or all or quarter?
I don't remember the total number of acres at the landfill, but I would guess that it's more like a quarter or a fifth. A substantial portion of the landfill is occupied by Landscape Recycling Center, Police Firing Range, and Fire Department Training Range. So we're already using a lot of that space, which is great.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just meant the unused space. That's what I was.
Unused
Yeah.
space, this is maybe closer to half of the
So
unused.
there's a possibility of doing it again next year or something to that effect?
The space that we're putting into the lease option is the best, flattest space.
So,
The rest of it becomes increasingly marginal with the right incentives and with technology improvement, price declines, and the installations and all that. Maybe the rest of it becomes viable, but it is not ideal. So.
How contingent would you say the project is on the state lottery system for the RECs?
Completely contingent. So the recs that we need from the state are for a development that is delivered by Ameren's utility lines. So the off-taker will have to pay transmission distribution fees. So, it's very challenging to get the supply price down to where that's viable.
Do we have an estimate of I'm sure it's out there, but is it available, the price per kWh for the PPA, assuming?
The off-taker price?
Yeah.
Well, you can presume that it's got to meet or beat the market price at the time. So,
Okay. Market rate,
yeah,
plus or minus?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think all the potential off-takers are looking at a meet or beat
Mhm.
opportunity.
Okay, okay.
Moving on, Sustainable Water Management Plan update. Myself and other staff are reviewing responses to a city letter of interest regarding the development of a stormwater master plan. The city has an existing stormwater master plan that is very, very old. And so the intent is to update that with a new master plan that'll address future stormwater management, stormwater infrastructure, and water quality improvement practices. So that's going to, look at where improvements and expansions and upgrades need to be, describe, what those upgrades might be, concepts such as low-impact development and green infrastructure were not extant in the previous plan. They will be considered in this plan. And that will probably be awarded in spring of 2019, work beginning probably immediately thereafter. I don't recall what the end date is for this, but I suspect it'll be, a draft will be finished in 2019 at least.
Like this body works on the Urbana Climate Action Plan, I don't know if the question is how germane is the writing of the Stormwater Master Plan to the Sustainability Advisory Commission, or would there be input sought from this committee?
There will be some public input planned for the plan, and that may include staff visits and explanation of the draft plan to this commission and perhaps others. Certainly, if it goes to other commissions, I would think it would also come here. To answer your question specifically, I think it's germane. Some additional public engagement. Staff shared Urbana's experiences developing our local solar market on a recent US EPA webinar. Staff are working with the University of Illinois Extension Service to reactivate a professional network called Prairie State Local Government Sustainability Network. This would have the Extension Service provide some organization, meeting, and networking facilitation services. The network serves to connect practitioners and do peer learning and potentially other collaboration.
Who's the extension contact for that?
Lisa Merrifield.
Oh, okay. I'm talking with her this
Yeah.
week.
Yep. Youth Cycle recently worked with the Park District, as they do every year, on the annual America Recycles Day event at the Anita Perez Nature Center. This year was focused on autumn-related recycling efforts. They do activities with kids typically, and they focused on different aspects of recycling, reuse, and upcycling on that autumn and Halloween theme. I've got in the packet a 2019 SAC schedule. State law requires public bodies to publish a complete schedule every year. we got some direction that commissions don't have to vote on it. I think this commission has in the past, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. So I would propose just going ahead and making a motion and accepting that schedule, and of course amending it if need be as well. Aside from that, our next meeting would not be in January, but would be February 5th, 7 p.m. at Council Chambers.
Are there any questions from the commission for Scott about the staff report? Okay. I would just like to go ahead and open up the floor to the public to see if you all have any questions about the staff report or about all the things that are going on in our community related to sustainability, or if anything you heard here tonight piqued your interest that you wanted to ask something a little bit more about.
Or make a suggestion or a comment. It doesn't have to be a question, right? Yeah.
Okay. We'll go ahead, we'll move forward with the 2019 commission meeting schedule. I don't know if you're able to bring that up onto the screen. Okay, thank you very much. Will the committee just review this schedule sort of to yourselves real quickly and see if there are any issues or concerns or dates that you feel should change based on the schedule?
So November 5th is upstairs. That's election day. And what was September 3rd? There was some other conflict. Some meeting here.
Should we just plan on having the July meeting a week later instead of the week that is, I don't know which day of the week that it, well, it's a Tuesday, right? Tuesday. I'm thinking about the 4th of July, Wednesday, Thursday, never mind. The Tuesday would be fine.
These are,
Yeah, forget I said anything.
these meetings are, of course, amendable or cancelable in the future. We just have to start the year with a complete set.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the schedule for 2019?
I move to approve the schedule for 2019.
I second.
All in favor of approving the SAC schedule for 2019, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Scott. Okay, we have one announcement this evening, and that is just that we had observed that Ameren, Illinois currently has a $100 rebate for a smart thermostat with no income qualifications available through the end of the calendar year, which makes some smart thermostat pricing really competitive. So if you are interested in a smart thermostat, now is a really good time to buy one. Are there any other announcements this evening? Okay. It doesn't look like we have any old business this evening to discuss, and so we will just move to adjourn. Is there a move to adjourn this meeting?
Move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for a quick meeting this evening.